The time is July 1988 when scientific ambition collides with primal instinct in a chilling study of control, dependency, and the dark corners of human nature. When Allan Man is paralyzed from the neck down after a tragic accident, his life becomes a quiet prison of frustration and vulnerability, until science offers him an unlikely companion, Ella, a capuchin monkey genetically enhanced to assist paraplegics. At first, Ella becomes Allan's lifeline, intelligent, affectionate, and intuitive in ways that defy explanation. But as their bond deepens, something far more disturbing begins to surface. Ella starts responding to Allan's suppressed anger and jealousy, acting out on his buried emotions with violent precision. The line between man and animal, mind and instinct begins to blur as both spiral into shared psychosis of desire and rage. This week on Back to the Balcony, we tackled Monkey Shines.
Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, two titans of cinematic review. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but always captivating. Your hosts Antonio of the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and Justin Henson of the Movie Wire are here to take you back to the balcony.
Now, this one I came by in my collection and I just saw the cover and I went down memory lane and it just reminded me, as kids, we remember this cover almost as it was meant for kids. A dark background with an object, creature, animal that sparks the imagination of youth. As is the intent to rent me, we have a doll from Child's Play, a monkey, a pumpkin with a knife from Halloween, a demon on the toilet, a clown face. This is the 80s, and this is what kind of formed our life of the home video of horror that really did attract us to this kind of genre. And I have to say, this one was a trip down memory lane, and it's not a perfect movie, but the mere idea of it is just enough to keep us engaged. It has its moments, but this is a movie of just a pure premise. To me, that works.
Yeah, it's a bad monkey movie. It's an evil animal movie, and I'm always a sucker for those. And yeah, definitely ringing through my childhood, the things I can remember about this film. I didn't see it in the theaters, but I cannot ever forget being terrified of the trailer for it, both in the theater when I saw the trailer, and then they played it on TV nonstop. It had like that quirky little rhyme where the guy's like, the monkey got inside his brain and then they fought and now one of them is dead. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just remember it would like go to a black and white image of that monkey's face zooming in during the end of that little poem, and it scared the shit out of me. And I knew I wasn't going to see it in the theater, but I knew as soon as it hit video, I was going to send my dad to go get it, which he did. And yeah, it's not a scary movie, and I don't think it's like trying to really portray itself as a scary movie. It's a psychological thriller with a monkey is the best way I can explain it. And after watching it, I did it on the Cult-Worthy a couple years ago with a couple other bad animal movies. I'm still like on the fence of whether or not I would have this in the horror section or in the drama section, because it does feel more like a psychological thriller to me, like a Psycho would. And again, I don't know if Psycho belongs in horror either. I'm kind of on the fence about that. But at the end of the day, I do like this movie a lot. I like the nostalgia of it. I got one problem with it. And it's my biggest problem, man. It's the Romero curse. Like, I love George A. Romero movies, Dawn of the Dead especially, but there's just something about Romero that I feel like you're not allowed to say if you are a so-called cinephile and horror fan. And that's that, like, the dude just gets long-winded in some films, you know? Like, Night of the Living Dead is a tight 90, I think. It might even be 80. It's a short film and it's great. But then everything after that, he pushes a 2-hour mark on everything. Night Riders with Ed Harris and Tom Savini is like 2.5 hours of Renaissance Fair motorcycle dudes. I like the movie, but it's long, and this movie is 30 minutes too long, in my opinion. It's just part of the Romero curse. Now, I'll watch 5 hours of Dawn of the Dead all day, but 2 hours of this is a lot, especially now where I'm like really in that old man mode of give me 90 minutes or fuck off.
Well, the thing with it is he's great with intimate settings with big ideas. Here we have an intimate setting with a small idea that just stays in kind of almost a one setting spot with a singular threat. And I think this is where I think you're absolutely right. This one is more of a psychological thriller because it focuses on the vulnerability. It really is a man that has no control over himself, and that's what makes this more of a big kind of idea when it comes down to it. When we're following this guy, of what this monkey's going to do to this guy, not how he's going to react per se, but I think it is a really smart idea to go to the psychosis piece of it. And there are smart elements here that really does shine on it. But I think you're right. It did need about 30 more, 30, not more, 30 less minutes to really get the pacing going, because our critics are going to talk about it, and there are elements that needed to be taken out of this movie to really kind of focus on the vulnerability piece of it. I mean, we have the exploitation of what this man can and can't do. We have him bathing in like two or three scenes. We have a sex scene in it. So this goes all in on what this guy can't do. It focuses on the physical vulnerability, but we lose a lot of the mental vulnerability that could have really pushed this into more of the psychological thriller aspect. Because when we actually see this guy be almost mentally vulnerable, is talking about the monkey psychosis, is talking about scientific aspects of it. So that's what I have the problem with, is it focuses on more the situational piece versus where this guy is on a mental state before the monkey.
What it reeks of is it does reek of like trying to impress a studio. This is Romero's first studio film. Everything before that was pretty much independently financed and then picked up by a studio. And this is not an original work of his. This was based off of a novel that he co-wrote the screenplay with the original writer. But I think we've had this conversation before about filmmakers adapting a screenplay, or if the author of the book is the one that's also adapting it into a screenplay, just cherry picks the things that they really, really want, and they don't believe in trimming the fat. Like they want to keep as much. I think Bloodline was the show that we talked about where it was the author who did the screenplay, and you could tell that he didn't want to take anything out. And that's why that movie feels so bloated. I feel this might be the same thing. It's like there's a lot of scenes that don't belong in here, and I don't think they're Romero additions as much as I think that they were agreements in the process of him and the novelist being like, I don't want to take this out. This really means a lot to the character. And it shows, like you said, all of the scenes where we have to relate to how shitty this dude's life is because of his quadriplegic state, with the bathing, with the crazy nurse in her parakeet, and his Norman Bates nurse ratchet mom who's just over controlling and overbearing. Great character, by the way. Like, yeah, we spent a lot of time figuring out why this guy's life sucks, but we didn't need all of that. Some clever editing and a few lines of dialogue could have said, hey, the reason why I'm having all of these emotional connections with this monkey that he doesn't know is manipulated by science is because all the trauma that I am going through. We don't need to see 3 scenes of why his life sucks. We already know. And that's where the bloat is. Plus, there's a lot of scenes that like I feel are just too much extra. Like we get too much time with the John Pankow character, Geoffrey, the scientist. I think we get too much time with him and his boss. Like we don't care about it's Stephen Root, but we don't care. We don't need all that, right? I could have used more Stanley Tucci and Janine Turner because I love both of them, and I'm glad that we got as much as we did. But again, I think that is a process where it's like, choose your battle, right? Choose your warrior. Who's going to be the best presence on screen? And as much as I think this guy, Jason Beghe, was in this role of Allan, he just really wasn't magnetic enough to carry the whole movie on his own. And they really force it to carry the whole movie on his own.
I think you're absolutely right, because it almost flows like an audiobook. You can tell almost what sections of the book this movie wanted to carry, but there was left out details. Unless this movie was 3 hours long, then it maybe would have mattered with some of these characters. Take out the nurse, take out Root, and put in Stanley Tucci, because this is one of the better stake scenes where we have full revenge, where we have some stakes to this villainous doctor, if you will, that's just lazy, who's overconfident. Give me more of that. Take a singular threat and take the family element and make that a movie,
Yeah.
because we don't need any of the parakeet. The nurse was such a pointless scene.
That was like a pointless 15 minutes for one, should say, stereotypical jump scare, right?
100%, because we get she's a naughty nurse, whatever, bad nurse. But at this point, there's nothing that builds up to where her personality goes. It's just thrown in. So
Right.
I got more entertainment out of the mom than I did anything else. So we can have this overbearing mom and make that the storyline, make that a build upon what's going to happen. Because when we actually get a result, it should be an emotional stake, it should be a situational stake, and it should be something that we're engaged to of when we don't know it's coming, instead of just having all these jump scares. So this movie could have been a build of certain characters, and that would have been enough because the intrigue is already there. Like I said in the beginning, this is a movie that just rides on a mere idea of vulnerability and a monkey that is in complete control in a house setting. So that's where the intrigue is. It has enough with just the mere idea, with all this crappy filler in it. But at the same time, I'm going to go back saying the idea is still engaging of it. So, but this is where we need an Academy Award for animals, because the monkey is where it's at when it comes to where it's building the stakes, because we're not watching any of the actors. This movie has the mere gimmick of watching an animal kill, and that's where our attention is.
I agree. Let's talk about the love. I'm not gonna say triangle. It kind of is the fact that we have what's her name, Kate McNeil as Melanie, the essentially the rehabilitation therapist, right? And I think it's a great character, and I really love the chemistry between them. The part that I have a problem with the movie is that it spends so much time elongating the exposition of his personal trauma and dealing with the mom and the nurse and all the other stuff that the romance between them seems rushed, and it kind of breaks the believability of that romance and like how it ends up. So I think that's one of the other problems I have with this movie, is that it spends so much time building credibility of plot points that don't necessarily deliver, where one of the biggest plot points is the jealousy of Ella the monkey towards Melanie the therapist. That gets rushed by, and it's the main focal point of the climax of the movie. So I had a big issue with that too. Again, if you would have just consolidated the film a little bit and not try to tell too much story and then take away from the story that needed to be told, that would have been an issue. I think like the sex scene, it plays two ways. It plays kind of silly, right? But at the same time, it also speaks to the fact that like there can be a connection between the therapist and then this dude who thinks that his whole life is over, that he'll never love again, he'll never have an intimate connection. There's something very sweet and emotional about that. But when you just kind of throw it in there, almost like unexpected and unnecessary, it loses credibility. And that was my biggest issue with that thing, is like the romance lost all its credibility because we spent so much time building up to everything else. But the climax is great. Like the climax is long. It's almost 30 minutes of that final act of just the cat and mouse between Allan and Melanie and this monkey. And it's done so well. Like that's when Romero really shines, right? That's when he really brings his way of framing and suspense and terror and building tension. That is what I really wanted to see for more of the movie. But I'm glad that we got what we did. Cut 30 minutes out somewhere else and leave that alone. It really kind of speaks to what a great filmmaker he really was, and how he could make longer movies that kept your attention because he knew how to keep the stakes high. And this one just doesn't.
You know, whenever you have this genre of what it is intended to be, horror, you know you're rushing chemistry when you have to insert a sex scene that really doesn't need to be inserted. You kind of take the shortcut of the build of dialogue, and he said, you know what, let's have this paralyzed man just have sex with this woman, and that'll speed it up and it'll be justified, which it's not here. It is a silly moment, but at the same time, you want to stand up and cheer saying, finally, he's going to have 2 minutes of happiness right there. But this is where I'm going to disagree with you. I didn't
Oh, really?
like the climax. I thought it was It had moments. The minute we have the character open up the scientist open up the closet, you see the dangling light chain. I thought that was great, but I wanted more of that. We have this big house environment with a small little monkey with a lot of rooms. I don't think the environment was utilized properly. So it was a lot of up close shots, a lot of hallway shots. But when we're searching rooms for this monkey, I think we should have spent more time on that build on where this monkey's going to pop out. I think that closet scene with the dangling light was a good shot of kind of a beginning, but we don't get anything more than that later in it. So we just get searching and running and cliche kind of moments where we can almost anticipate where this monkey's going to come from. And when the monkey does come, it's up close shots of his face, it's up close shots of him handling an object, and it doesn't utilize the holistic world of this house. So I think the stakes are there. The characters' performances are there in the climax of the threat to a mild extent. I think they could have elevated a little bit more, but I think the environment isn't truly utilized here to actually, for, like you said, a 30-minute climax. We just had a lot of running and up close shots that I think is just kind of wasted given what the movie could have been.
I mean, maybe I'm just a sucker for bad animals, right? And I do like the fact that like he is in a wheelchair and he has to be creative. Essentially, Rob Reiner did the very same thing with Misery, having James Caan in a wheelchair, kind of playing cat and mouse with Kathy Bates in her own home. But yeah, I think the other thing you have to think about too is like the pop culture relevance of that climax. We'd seen in a lot of different TV shows, most famously The Simpsons, where Homer has a helper monkey. And then I think one of my favorite utilizations of it is in Malcolm in the Middle, where Craig has a helper monkey and then Hal has to help him fight it. And it's essentially Monkey Shines, but like in a studio apartment. Like it plays out really well in the pop culture world. I don't know. I just think the movie has a better beginning and end than it does a middle. And it feels like you like the beginning and middle more than you do the end.
I really did. But again, with the same complaints that I have with you is the bloated filler we didn't need. The mom character was such a great character. And this is where I speak to you often is when you see such good performances, such a good chemistry, such a good idea, that's where we have to pivot and just say, time out. Let's get more of
Right.
this. Take this out of the, let's take that out of the editing room and let's put more of this. Improvise if you have to, but this is good. Let's roll with it. And we don't get that here. I mean, even when we had that conversation where the mom and son conflict, where he's cussing out his mom, that actually should have been longer. And even having the mom's reaction after she leaves the room, we should have had more of that. And again, taking out the pointless nurse, show me the conflict of an emotional stake. And that's more scary when it comes to the build towards the climax than we're going to get from a pointless character we're not going to remember by the time the credits roll. That is where this movie could have been better. And I think we both agree on that, is we have some decent moments here that could have gone a little bit longer if we took out the filler.
So I'm going to do the things that I liked about this movie before I do the things that are almost laughable before we jump into the critics' reviews. And I wonder if you're the same thing. So first of all, I'm a sucker for animal POV in movies. And this was an era where they did it a lot. I think some of the best utilization of it is in the film Link from 1986, where Terrence Stamp is training chimpanzees and an orangutan almost the same way. Like he's not using medicine, but he's using essentially therapy, almost like Mensa, to teach them to be smarter apes, right? And then they go crazy. But Link, you get lots of POV shots of him with a Steadicam low to the ground that I think are really cool. They do it with Ella in this. They do it with the Cyberman chimpanzee and Lawnmower Man. And most recently, we talked about Good Boy. We didn't talk about it, but we saw it, and I thought Good Boy was great. And what I liked about the movie is that they didn't do animal POV. Instead, they did it almost like a third person behind the dog as it would run upstairs and stuff like that. I'd never seen that done before. So I'm a real sucker for point of view of animal movies. So anytime we would see that Ella POV, where they have a psychic connection, I was really enthralled by that. And I thought that we could have used some more of that to really enhance attention. For example, how cool would it have been if we saw Ella's POV through like a psychic link of her lurking him through the house. That would have added a lot of tension to that third act that you have a problem with. And again, that's just me spitballing, but I think things like that we were teased with throughout the movie could have had more utilization later on to add to the tension. Now the laughable moments. I forgot every time I laugh when he gets hit by the truck. It's like one of the worst hit by a truck fly in and fall of any film. Like, it's so bad. I always forget that. It always catches me off guard of how terrible it is. And then I love Tom Savini as an effects artist. He does some amazing work here, but what is up with Allan's beard? Like, it is the fakest merkin looking beard I've ever seen in a film. Like, the fact, like, oh yes, he's grown a beard while he was convalescing and he doesn't want to shave it, but it is the fakest beard ever, and it's so distracting. Those two things I always forget about until I rewatch the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, he still has the beard. Oh, he keeps it. Oh my god, that's right. Yeah, those things every time take me so out of the movie.
I'll just match the laughability of it. The truck scene, it reminded me of the wheelchair with the kid going over with Mac and me. So yeah, that is a laughable moment. But I'm opposite with you with point of view shots, and I get it in the 80s. I do. I really do. And I'm just talking now. I hate animal point of view shots,
Oh,
and I hate them. They are so cheap, overused, and it just is an indicator that the filmmaker didn't put a lot of thought, unless you're really utilizing the environment, didn't put a lot of thought in how to make this suspenseful. Because here we get the monkey looking at bushes, we get a yard, we get him running. There's nothing interesting in the point of view shot here. And when it comes to Good Boy, that is a prime example of putting detail, even on a low budget, of you have to worry about the lighting, you have to worry about the position, you have to worry about how each piece of fur is going to show a representation of the environment. So there is some detail there. There's some thought. There's some love put into a movie like Good Boy. Here, it's just the same old shit we get over and over again, where the point of view doesn't really add anything to the movie other than just seeing a shaky camera running through some grass. So I didn't like that piece of the movie. But what I did love of it is the fact that it really did utilize, I'm going to contradict myself here, it did utilize up close shots of the monkey to show some emotion to the monkey's reactions. And I did like the added notes of uh, Allan's teeth whenever he's connected to the monkey. You have some of those canines that are sticking out, matching the monkey's teeth. I like those little details. It's a little nod to the audience of a little bit more added stake, saying he's transforming. His connection is strong, because we don't get that in the beginning in the movie when things start to build. But when it kind of crescendos to the actual exclamation mark, we see almost a Wolfman transition with just a detail of the teeth. I loved that detail. And it's one of those moments. This is a movie that really does pay attention to those small little details, but forgets all the big details that really doesn't matter. So this is one of those movies that you can appreciate the idea, again, the idea of it, and it makes us engaged into finding little things of, almost like I said, Wolfman, but almost a Jekyll and Hyde piece of it. So it's a lot of the old monster movies mixed into this one Allan character. So that's what I loved, is just the mere nods to old school movies. But again, this isn't a movie with great writing. It's not a movie with great uh, attention to detail when it comes to the situational elements. And that's what really held this movie back for me. But at the same time, I'm going back to the ideas it has, because when it has an idea, it fully utilizes it. But when it doesn't know what to do with an idea, it completely fumbles it.
you know, it's funny. Like, after seeing Good Boy, it's kind of ruined me for animal movies, because at the end of that film, if you haven't seen the theater, go see it in the theater and stay through the credits, because there's a featurette at the end that shows you how they spent 4 or 5 years making Good Boy, like on a shoestring budget in their house. Essentially, like, as COVID started, they started doing this movie. And I never knew this, and I thought I knew so much about movies, that so much animal acting is actually it's like almost like a sleight of hand. It's a forced perspective kind of thing, where they literally just shoot an animal's face, and then the next shot is going to be an establishing shot of something scary, something funny, something happy. The animal is not acting. It's just you're You're programmed to have a facial pattern recognition of an expression based on the next thing you see after that animal. And then watching fucking monkey shines, that's exactly what they do. Like, Ella's not acting. Ella's literally just being a monkey, and then they'll shoot to another shot that is going to establish something sinister, something scary, something funny, something happy, something cute. Now that I know that secret, I will never be able to watch animal movies the same way again. It fucked me up. Like, I loved that movie, but goddamn, now I can't watch another animal movie without knowing the trick.
It's one of those pieces of magic, and I think we both agree we love Good Boy. But it's one of those where if you have a few years to make a movie, to have an idea on how to do something. I know Paranormal Activity did the same thing to an extent, where it had to force itself with a low budget to make something work. And Good Boy did that. And this is the problem when we have movies of the 80s, 90s to current, or ones that are on a timeline that you have 2-month shoot times or 6 month shoot times, whatever it may be. You're rushing to find an idea of how to make something work. And that's when we go back to the animal point of views, just some lazy situational elements, or let's just add filler to make us the runtime relevant, whatever it may be. So, but it goes back to just slow the fuck down and focus on one cool moment. When that one cool moment happens, it's going to trickle into multiple cool moments. So you just need to pick one damn thing of that script that is going to be that cool moment and translate that to every other shot.
Agreed. Okay, so now let's hear what our critics have to say about it. This was Rogers to bring to the show.
Our next movie is an odd and creative, somewhat confused thriller named Monkey Shines, directed by George Romero, the man who will be forever famous for making Night of the Living Dead. His story this time involves a relationship between a quadriplegic and a very intelligent monkey who has been trained to help him with simple tasks around the house. But no matter how that sounds, this is not a warm and positive human interest story. This is not the movie of the week on television that leaves you with a warm feeling in your heart. Nope, this one is a scary thriller in which the monkey turns into a malevolent mind reader who uses its animal instincts to carry out the hero's secret dreams of revenge, even against the hero's conscious will. But that's only one of the threads in this movie, which also involves a drug-crazed mad scientist, a love story, a nasty and vindictive nurse, a strangled parakeet, a couple of murders, and a sneaky surgeon who steals his patient's girlfriend. Not to mention, of course, a medical miracle and all of those great tricks by the monkey. In fact, I think Monkey Shines would have been about 50% better if it had contained about 50% less plot. You've got to give this movie credit. It doesn't play safe. There's nothing in it that's routine or predictable, but it's a structural mess that needed a big rewrite to whip it into shape. They should have taken out, I think, for starters, the mother, and I enjoyed the nurse, but the nurse's parakeet could have gone. Yeah. I'm giving this movie, I'm affectionate about this movie, but I've got to give it thumbs down because it's just not disciplined in what it wants to do.
I mean, I agree with him like 100% on everything except for the mother. Lose someone else. Keep the mother. Then the nurse could go, but the mother's important. The mother brings a familiarity of, let's say, Alfred Hitchcock, Norman Bates, Twilight Zone, the things that like we're initially expected to compare this movie to. The mother brings that in there. The nurse doesn't. The nurse can go.
Well, that's what baffles me. He picks one character that has no build, no relevancy, other than she's a nurse. There's no stakes to this character. She's a kill-off character, and the movie showed that. The mother has stakes in what happens to her son. She has the love, the emotional stakes. And we see that in the mild build we get when it crescendos into the conflict between them. So why Roger picked, I like the nurse, I didn't like the parakeet. You don't have the parakeet. What the fuck do you have? You have a nurse that's so stereotypical that you'll see in any other horror movie that just comes in and just treats Allan like crap, and you know she's gonna die. The mom, it's a hit or miss. You know, you don't want to see the mom die. If she does, it's going to be a double dagger to the heart. So I think Roger got that wrong to an extent, because it's almost like he was if it was any other horror movie, he would have called this a stereotypical character that just, you know, is going to die. And an audience member, even in the 80s, knows this nurse is going to die. It's the one that has the worst attitude, the one that treats the main character like crap, that always kills over. So that to me is a horrible piece of criticism, that you like the nurse, but not the mom.
Right. And like the mom to me, the mom feels like when Richard Franklin did Psycho 2 and they bring Vera Miles back, but this time she's almost like the villain of the movie when she was the hero in the first one. Now she's the villain. She's the over controlling, demanding mother of the woman that was killed by, or sorry, the sister of the woman that was killed by Norman Bates. And she comes in and she's all like furred up and has her pearls and has all like this better than holier than thou attitude. That's what this character reminded me of, but we got more of that because it was an actual mother character, not just like a representation, right? So that's what felt really familiar to me. Like I said, the mother's important because she is a horror trope, a thriller trope, and if you're going to have a thriller, stick with your tropes. Don't stray too far if it's not going to go anywhere. And your example of the nurse is perfect of that.
One of the things that's not disciplined, and I didn't care for it either, is how slow it takes to get the monkey malevolent. I mean, I think we go through at least a couple of reels in setting up all this experiment. You don't know where this film is going. I think if there was editing to be done, I'd edit right off the top before, and then.
Well, I didn't. You see, I thought at first it was going to be a do-gooder, warm-hearted movie about this wonderful monkey, and
But it wasn't going to.
And then the fact that it turned was amusing to me.
It did not. It was interesting to me. It did not surprise me that it was going to turn. I mean, when I think
because you knew that the subtitle of the movie was an experiment in terror. Maybe that was a clue.
That was a clue. It should have been a clue for you. And also, George Romero makes thrillers, and so I knew that was another big clue. So I think that really, as you said, the scripting is a complete rewrite.
I mean, I agree with him 100% there too. And I agree. The beginning is the part that needs the most trimming from it. The middle acts, the stuff that you've got with Melanie and Geoffrey as we're understanding why Ella's evil, I think that's necessary, but the bloat, in my opinion, is the first half of the film. Like the first quarter of the film as we're setting up everything with him, bringing the nurse in, dealing with Janine Turner leaving him and the infidelity. That's where, to me, the bloat is, while you think most of it's at the end. But that's the whole point. It's like, I spend this movie, even though I've seen it many times, I spend the first hour just waiting for the monkey shit to happen, right? That's my crack cocaine, is give me the crazy monkey shit and then I'm good. Everything up to that is just a lot of useless exposition. So I'm actually more on board with Gene's opinion of the film than I am with Roger's. Roger kind of lost me for a second where he's like, well, I thought it was going to be a sweet story. It's like, it's called Experiment in Terror, and you've seen the trailer. This is a horror film. The monkey's going to do bad shit. You know, the little sweetness, it's a decoy. It's a ploy to get you in so the monkey can do bad shit. And
they must have walked into this movie through the lobby, ignored the movie posters, and just walked in like this, because there is nothing that screams this is going to be a sweet movie. But the one thing I'm going to kind of fight back on is, I don't think the beginning should have been cut. I don't think we should have had time left from that. I do think, though, we should have had some rewrites because, again, I go back. There should have been some stakes built, and it shouldn't have been situational. Yeah, he's paralyzed. He's vulnerable. We get that. But we needed more from this character, and it's odd to say that in a thriller or a horror movie, but that's what builds a stake. That's what gets us invested into a character. And imagine if we cared about a character just as much as we did a killer monkey, that would have been a movie. So I think this one led into situational basis, and it didn't need to. It needed, like our critic said, a rewrite, not a cut. And we needed to cut more of the middle, the ridiculousness of it. The one scene I will go back to that was a very big disappointment for me, where we have the discovery that this monkey is not right. And we have our scientists go back and plot poison or whatever, and we have all these monkeys out in the laboratory. It almost reminded me of a Michael Crichton piece of literature, where we have all these monkeys attacking the master. We have the Frankenstein monster revolting. This is where I think that should have been elongated, where the stakes, where everybody goes against science. The experimentees go against science. That could have been good. And we get a moment of that where the monkeys are on top of him, but it does nothing with it. And we think it is going to do something with it. So there are moments like that that really do nod to movies past or literature past, but it just kind of teases us with it. And that's where this really did not need necessarily cuts, except for the nurse, but it needed rewrites, and some scenes elongated for an emotional stake and some intrigue in the center.
I think, too, because it's Romero, I think one of the reasons why I feel he stumbles over this one is because Romero is almost synonymous with social commentary in his films, right? Like Night of the Living Dead is kind of a social commentary on civil rights. Martin's kind of a commentary on male loneliness and isolation. Dawn of the Dead is synonymous with capitalism and consumerism, right? Like he's always got a social message in this movie. This one tackles ableism. And I just don't think that ableism was as hot a topic as it might be now in terms of diversity and representation in the zeitgeist. So I feel as a movie, it doesn't seem too interesting because a lot of people don't know a lot of quadriplegics. There wasn't a lot of diversity of people of different needs and abilities at this time. So it doesn't really feel challenging, and it also doesn't feel like embracing of the idea of ableism. It's hard for a filmmaker who's so used to making big social commentary movies to get stuck in a box and then kind of force the one social commentary that exists, the ableism, to be a bigger part of the movie. I think that's the problem. That if they would have just kept this a bad monkey movie and not explored the commentary of the ableism too much like they did, I think we would have a different conversation here. And I think as Romero, because then he'd go and do other things after this that, again, focuses on a larger social commentary, like The Dark Half, and even Creepshow. Creepshow's got a lot of that stuff too. This one, I feel like it's just too much in a shoebox of one idea, like you were saying, and that's why it just doesn't feel as interesting or as thrilling as other Romero productions.
I agree. And I think this is one of those films that really, again, banks on an idea. It works as an idea. It's engaging as an idea, but primarily for a first-time watch. And as we get into multiple watches, we can still appreciate a lot of what it's trying to do. And I think that's the most engaging piece of it, is just appreciation for it. It's not a horrible movie, but it's not a great movie either. It kind of goes in between where we can recognize the flaws, but it's hard to say this is a horrible movie because we are so engaged with it. We can say, man, it's been an hour and a half and it's still not over yet, but we're still engaged with it.
I think in the realm of bad monkey movies, or evil monkey movies, I should say, I'd say that Link from 1986 with Terrence Stamp and Elizabeth Shue is better than Monkey Shines. But Monkey Shines is better than Shakma, which is the evil baboon in the high-rise building where kids are like playing Dungeons and Dragons and the evil monkey escapes a lab and hunts them down. It's better than that. That's still a fun movie, but it's better than that. I can't think of any other evil monkey movies besides those three at the moment. But I'd say it goes Link, then this, and then that. This could have been number one. It's just too much movie.
100%.
So I'm going to have to say, man, for my guy, Gene, I liked his review on this. I agree with pretty much everything that he said. And I think that his retorts to Roger's defenses were actually valid, because I don't think that this time Roger was on his game in the sense of defending the things that he liked about the movie. He would have been much better served saying, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like, and then just let Gene have his say. So for that, I'm going to give Gene a B+, dude. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm going to go contrary to it with my guy, because there was nothing that I really agreed with him on, except that it was a lot of movie, a lot of subplots going on, a lot of conflicts going on. I agree with that, but the things that he said needed to go wasn't an improvement of how to fix this movie. So it was a very linear review and a very safe review. And with that comment, it's almost, dare I say, unforgivable, because that's not what this movie's problem was. If we would have gone all in, like we said before, with the nurse, that wouldn't have improved the movie. It would have made it worse, because it's a stereotypical throwaway character. So for Roger, I have to give him just a 2 stars.
I agree. And Roger's biggest detriment to himself is when he lets the cat out of the bag that he's very fond of a movie and he has a lot of affection for it. Like you said, he used the word affection, but he just can't get behind it to give it a thumbs up. That's always a problem. Like, just be honest. Say, hey, okay, you know what? This movie could have done better, but it's a thumbs down. It's good to see the inside of him as a human of what he wanted to like in the movie, but as a critic, I felt like I wasn't getting anything. It's like, ooh, it's almost good, but it's a thumbs down at the end. Like we said, if we're being objective in the sense that we're trying to convince an audience to go pay their $7 back in the day to go see a nighttime movie, that's not good enough. You gotta be black or white sometimes. And if you have the faith to jump to a thumbs up, which we've seen both of them do, then just do it, right? Don't say, almost there, thumbs down. You're just kind of killing the whole point of the show when you do that.
Well, not only that, but we got to remember that Roger is very particular when it comes to animal movies. So he even kind of said he was expecting a feel-good movie. Anytime he goes into an animal movie, it's almost like he's expecting a feel-good movie. So you have to be extremely strong in the writing process and the direction and really say what to expect when going in. So Roger doesn't go in with a disappoint, because if he had it his way, I'm sure everything would be sunshine and rainbows with anything with an animal in it.
Agreed. Okay, so at the end of the day, do I like Monkey Shines enough to own it? Guess what? It's not on my shelf. I've just never liked this movie enough to actually buy it, right? So I was good just watching it, paying my $3 and seeing it on Prime or whatever. And if I want to watch it again, maybe I will for a podcast. But the last 2 times I've seen this film, it was for a podcast. I just don't see myself jumping to watch it at any time. But I will watch Shakma anytime because it's stupid and fun, and it's always on Tubi, so that's always fun. Anyway, so next week, we are taking a quick little break from our horror movies, and we are going to bring back something that was really popular about 6-7 months ago, and that was our Siskel and Ebert quiz. This time it's Justin's turn to quiz me. He's going to bring a handful of clips of reviews of different movies, and I have to guess the movie. We're giving ourselves a break of watching some movies because we got plenty of movies to watch for other podcasts. We can take a break on this one.
I can't wait for this one, and I've been racking my brain. I think I got some good ones to stump you, and I don't know. I'm getting into the Justin library here just because I know it might stump you, but I don't know. We'll see how you do. I'm excited for next week.
Okay, so while we're on that subject, there is a podcast out there, and I forget the name because I've only seen their clips on Instagram. I'll bring it in the next episode. But they play games with each other where they show 5 pictures of something from a movie. So guess the movie by the flower in the background. Guess the movie by the pie on the table. Guess the movie by the steak someone's eating. And it was so much fun to play this game with these guys on this little Instagram reel. I can't wait to listen to their podcast. But that's what kind of this is like, are you in tune enough with movies to be able to know what movie a steak is from? For example, the old 96er. Well, we just talked about Great Outdoors. I'm like, oh, that's the old 96er. I would know that steak anywhere. Anyway, I got off topic, but we need more games in our show is what I'm trying to say.
100%. And you know what? I think I'm channeling you when I come to my movie picks, because I think you'll be surprised. I'm not going to go traditional on this one, so it'll be fun.
Well, everyone, thank you for watching, listening. Please rate, review, subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe to us on Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a great review. Share it with your friends. Let's get that momentum going. You can find me, Antonio, the host of the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast, over at thecultworthy.com. And you can find my co-host, Justin Henson, over at
themoviewire.com.
And I'll see you next week.
See you next week.